verdict? As Your Honor knows, after the evidence is closed, if there's a failure of competent evidence tending to prove the charge in the indictment, then the defendant is entitled to a directed verdict. The court should consider only the existence or non-existence of the evidence and not its weight. In this case, Your Honor, the evidence is exclusively circumstantial, and in State v. Dent, the South Carolina Court of Appeals in 2021 explained that the standard to be applied when the state relies upon circumstantial evidence is that all of the circumstances must be consistent with each other, and when taken together, point conclusively to the guilt of the accused beyond a reasonable doubt. If their circumstances merely portray the defendant's behavior as suspicious, the proof has failed. And also another legal doctrine that we would point out is mere presence at the scene of a crime without more is insufficient to constitute guilt. The reason I say that legal doctrine, Your Honor, is at most what the state has proven and offered of proof is that the defendant was at the kennels at 8:44. He misstated that he was there, or he lied about he was being down there, and that raises a level of suspicion, and that they have concocted a cell phone timeline to come up with a time of death without any actual evidence of time of death. And there is no direct and frankly circumstantial evidence presented that the defendant shot and killed his wife Maggie or son Paul. As the evidence established, the murderer would have had blood and biological material on him or her. The murderer would have had blood on his or her clothing. The murderer would have murder weapons. The murderer or murderers would have evidence of disposing of murder weapons on property or vehicle. And there's no evidence that Alec Murdaugh had any of this. He had no blood from the brutal murder of his son Paul. He had no DNA from Paul on his clothing in an area where you would expect to find it if he had shot his son, which he did not. There's no GSR on his clothing or clothes that is inconsistent with Alec holding a shotgun for protection. The state has proven at most that he was at the kennels at 8:44 p.m. The state does not have proof of time of death. The state does only have proof of when the last time Paul and Maggie used their phones. Most importantly, and as I mentioned earlier, the law is clear. Mere presence at the scene of a crime is insufficient to establish guilt. Although, to be equally clear, Alec Murdaugh was not at the scene of the crime at the time his wife and son were murdered, and there's no evidence that he was. And for that reason, we move for a directed verdict.
Yes, sir. By the state.
Your Honor, looking at the evidence that's been presented by the state, first of all, without detailing every bit of evidence, there's been ample evidence of motive evidence presented in this particular case. The years of embezzlement and theft and the exposure, very significant exposure that the defendant was facing as June the 7th approached, which includes the loss of a job, the loss of a career, the loss of his bar license, the loss of years of wealth, the potential to lose everything, in his own words. You've heard evidence about a confrontation June 7th on those matters that very day, as well as the boat hearing that was upcoming. And the effects that would have. Also heard extensive evidence of the defendant's financial condition on that day as it moved forward. Also evidence, Your Honor, of his ongoing narcotics addiction and how those particular things were relevant to what was going on as it related to the victims. There's been evidence, and again, as Your Honor is aware, the evidence must be taken in the light most favorable to the state, that family weapons were used to murder Maggie and Paul. You've heard evidence from the defendant's own mouth about a missing shotgun, and of course we have extensive evidence about the missing Blackout, that being the replacement gun. Of course, you've heard evidence that the defendant claimed that was missing at Christmas time, but there was evidence from Will Loving that that gun was present and being used, including at the side of the house as late as turkey season, just a couple months prior to the murders. And that from the firearms expert, that the cases found around Maggie's body were cycled through the same weapon. The murder weapon cycled the same cases as weather cases that were found at the side of the house, consistent with what Will Loving testified, as well as at the shooting range across the street. You've additionally heard that the same exact brand and weight of ammo that was used to kill Maggie was found throughout the property, as well as the same buckshot and birdshot ammo as well. There's been evidence presented by the state as to the defendant's trip to Alameda and his interaction with Shelley Smith after the murders, as well as the bringing the raincoat in. Additionally, that he left and moved his dad's truck in the four-wheeler, and that the raincoat contained high levels of GSR. There's been evidence presented in this particular case inconsistent with the defendant's statements to law enforcement, multiple changes of clothes that particular day, as well as evidence from Blanca that the clothes that he was wearing in the Snapchat video were never seen again, as well as the fact that the earlier clothes that he was wearing were not seen either. You have evidence that the defendant claimed that he was unaware that Maggie was coming to Moselle, or he did not ask for that, but you've heard evidence from multiple sources, including a text message that he specifically asked the victim to be present on that day. Your Honor, he was found in possession of a shotgun that cannot be excluded as a murder weapon that also had Maggie's blood on it. And then, of course, Your Honor, we have extensive phone and other digital evidence, and I don't need to reiterate the last witness, but that's been presented from multiple witnesses and multiple sources of a timeline. The defendant, of course, claimed that he was never at the scene, and the evidence shows, pursuant to the state's theory and reasonable inferences therefrom, that he was at the scene, contrary to what he told everyone who would listen. Just minutes, he's at the scene with the two victims, just minutes before, under the state's theory and a reasonable inference from the evidence, the victims were killed. Additionally, his conduct in the timeline after that, there's a number of reasonable inferences about that that are consistent with the defendant's guilt. And to summarize a month's worth of evidence, that is the summary. But happy to address the timeline more, but I know that Your Honor just heard it in great detail.
There's a motion for directed verdict that's made at the end of the state's case. The court is concerned with whether there is any evidence, either direct or circumstantial, which reasonably tends to prove the guilt of the accused, or from which the guilt of the accused may be fairly and logically deduced. In this case, we have had, is it day 20 now? I guess 18 days of direct and circumstantial evidence. And the law makes no distinction between the weight or value to be given either direct evidence or circumstantial evidence. Nor is a greater degree of certainty required of circumstantial evidence than of direct evidence. Cases can be proven by direct evidence, circumstantial evidence, or a combination of the two. At this stage of the proceedings, there is evidence to support a guilty verdict if it is believed by the jury. I therefore deny the motion for a directed verdict. Ready to roll with the defense?
Rock and roll, Your Honor.
Rock and roll. All right, well, let's take a 30-second stretch and bring the jury out and press on. Very good. Madam Forelady, how's the jury doing? Doing good. Very good. You have heard the state's case. It is now the defense's turn. And you may call your first witness.
All right. Coroner Richard Harvey, please.
Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You would, sir, be seated. Take your full name for the record. Spell the last part.
Okay.
And before we begin testimony, I think Mr. Waters, you're going to formally rest.
May it please the court, Your Honor. In the matter of the indictments of the defendant Alec Murdaugh for the murders of his wife Maggie and his son Paul, the state of South Carolina rests.
The state is rested, and now it's the defense's turn.
State your full name for the record, please.
My name is Richard Harvey.
And, Mr. Harvey, you are an elected official here in Colleton County?
Yes, sir. I am the coroner of Colleton County.
Okay, and briefly describe your duties to the jury so they understand what a coroner does.
We basically investigate any death that occurs outside a hospital, any death that dies within 24 hours of admission to a hospital, any emergency room death is reported to the coroner's office as well. And primarily our responsibility is to do an investigation as to the cause of their death, including medical records, autopsies, and that's basically my responsibility, is to determine what the cause of death and the manner of death is.
So, you don't have a medical degree, though?
No, sir.
Okay.
But I was one of the first medically trained coroners in the state of South Carolina.
Okay. And how long have you been coroner?
This is my 30th year.
30th year. So let me talk a little bit about in general. Well, no, let me just go ahead and cut to the chase here. You have a file with you, and I believe it's a file concerning the deaths of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh.
I do.
And how did you get notified of their deaths?
I was actually notified by one of my deputies who was on call that evening. And any time there's a homicide along that lines, in most cases, I attend those. And he was on call, and basically he told me he also has another job because he's only part-time. And he told me, he says, look, I can't stay. He says, I've got to work tomorrow morning. And he says, I hate to dump this on you, but he says, but, this is going to be yours.
So you took, well, first let me back up for just a second. Did you respond, and if so, what time did you get to the scene? And I'm going to lead you and say in Moselle.
I was notified at 23:04, which is 11:04 in the evening.
Okay.
And I arrived on the scene. Let me back up there. I arrived on the scene at 23:04. I was actually notified about 22:30 by my deputy who was on call.
So 22:30 would be 10:30?
Yes, sir.
So you got notified at 10:30. You got on the scene at
11:04.
And were you by yourself?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Did you process this scene? Did you have somebody take? Did you take photographs or something?
Yes, sir. I did.
So the photographs in your file
Yes,
are
sir.
your photographs.
Yes, sir.
And in taking those photographs, did you, for instance, go into the feed room and take some photographs?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And had that crime scene been processed by SLED at that point?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you do anything to, and I'll be frank with you, there's some footprints that have been identified as law enforcement or perhaps your folks that were in the feed room, perhaps in blood, before SLED had finished processing. Are those your folks or SLED or who, do you know?
I'm unaware of those.
Okay. So when you took those photographs, did you take precautions to, how do you not disturb evidence?
We've always kind of followed a pattern that we follow the same path in and the same path out. Therefore, we don't cross over into any possible assailants.
Okay. And again, you're preserving evidence. It's a homicide, so this is your
Correct.
case, right? And you do that pursuant to state law.
Yes, sir.
And we've received your photographs. Thank you for those. And I think you gave them to SLED also, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so you perform a function also. I've looked at the death certificates of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh, and you have a time of death of 9 o'clock. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's go through when you begin to examine the body to determine time of death. Tell me how you do that.
Well, initially that evening, when I initially got there, I was told that SLED was coming, which I knew, depending on where SLED was coming from, It depends. It could be an hour, it could be 2 hours. It all depends on what part of the state and what group is actually coming to you. My initial processing was that I went and checked both bodies. And I simply put my hands in their armpits to determine how warm they are. This is one of the things we do sometimes to try and estimate a time of death. Is the body cold? Is the body warm? And one of the other things we check for is what they call rigor. And rigor is basically when a person dies, the body goes through this process, and as it goes through this process, your joints start to stiffen up. And when I initially got there, that was all I did initially because I knew SLED was coming.
So with rigor or rigor, I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
I call it rigor.
I call it rigor, but so how, if you allow me to say rigor, because
That's fine.
I've never said rigor. Was there rigor or rigor?
There was not.
Okay, so these folks have been dead less than a couple hours?
1 to 3 hours typically is what they say that rigor should start developing.
Okay, and in terms of trying to estimate or get it a little bit closer than 1 to 3 hours, you took your hand. Show me what you did, and you did it both to Paul and Maggie?
Yes.
How about, would you, let me see how we can make this. See it. Could you step down here, please?
Sure.
And they were laying on the ground, both of them, right?
Yes, sir.
And did you move them?
No.
Okay, so.
They were covered with a sheet initially when I got.
Right, so let's have you stand over
Okay.
here so the jury can see me. And you went up to Paul, and where did you put your hand?
I have to think now which way Paul was laying.
I'm not worried about
Right.
whether it was left
Okay.
or right.
Basically, what I did is I lifted his arm up just a little bit here, and I stick my hand up into the armpit, and that's one of the central areas of your body. Without using the only other choice is a rectal thermometer, and in most cases, when you have that many people around, I'm not going to pull somebody's pants down to utilize the rectal thermometer. So I stick my hands in their armpit, and like I say, I can get an idea. I mean, how warm they are.
Okay, and you did the same thing to Maggie.
I did the same thing to Maggie.
And you concluded on your death certificate 9 o'clock.
It's strictly an estimation.
That's a guess.
It's a guess.
Okay, could have been 8:30,
Could have been 8:30.
could have been 10 o'clock.
There were no witnesses there to tell me exactly what time this happened.
Do you carry a rectal thermometer to do specific measurements?
Well, usually what I'll do is I'll get it from fire rescue, the ambulance,
Uh-huh.
and I'll borrow theirs. And yes, I do rectal temps.
But you didn't do it on that.
But we didn't do it that night, no.
And that's the reason the death certificate says 9 o'clock.
Right. That was an estimation from what I found as far as the warmth of the body.
Thank you, court indulgence. I just want to make sure that we understand each other. Your statement of 9 o'clock, it could have been 8 o'clock.
It could have been 8 o'clock.
Their death could have been the result of being shot at 8 o'clock.
I basically looked at 2.5 hours from the time that the call came in to the time I actually got there.
So they could have been shot at 10 o'clock
Could have been.
or any time in between.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Coroner. Please answer any questions.
By the state.
Mr. Harvey, you did not use rectal or any sort of thermometer on that night.
No, sir.
And isn't it true that the best way to determine the actual time of death, particularly in a violent homicide, is to take the temperature?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
And the temperature decrease is roughly at a rate of 1.5 degrees every hour,
Right.
correct?
Correct.
And it's also affected by the ambient temperature in the area.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Yet, as I understand your testimony, correct me if I'm wrong, you really do not have a general idea as to when that incident actually occurred,
That's right. Yes, sir, that's true.
because you didn't take the temperature, correct?
Right, and thermometers are not always accurate either, so, and that's one thing that we've learned over the years. I mean, we do have, and actually we now have the, I can't think of ultraviolet light, the light that shoots for the forehead. But what I've determined with that is that it's not necessarily accurate, is that I may shoot it at the forehead and it'll say 99 degrees, but if I shoot it in your ear, it might say 103.
That's right.
So, I mean, they're not necessarily accurate either.
That's right. And it's also impacted by body weight, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Age, elderly
Yes, sir.
versus youth, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the weather,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
If they were covered by a
Yes, sir.
sheet, that
Which
would,
they were at that time when I initially got
that
it.
could maintain something?
Yes, sir.
If they got wet through rain, that could affect it?
That could, yep, that could
And
definitely.
you had
drop it.
rain at that time, didn't you?
It had not rained hard at that point. Both
Not
of their
hard.
both of their hairs were heads of hair were dry.
Okay. And all those are factors which reflect what the actual time of death is.
Yes, sir.
Yet temperature is key.
Yes, sir.
And the only information you have is that the bodies were warm, correct?
Yes, sir.
Based upon
And
your,
Riger had not started.
and that usually begins to occur within 1 to 3 hours.
1 to 3
Correct.
hours. So that's the time frame that I was looking at.
Okay. And you walked around the area, got close to them at that particular time.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct? And you were walking in the scene, correct?
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
Yes, sir.
Two questions. You remember when Sled showed up?
I do have probably the times for that. I did not see Sled on here though.
Let me perhaps ask another question.
Okay.
Was Carleton County already there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were there Carleton County detectives there?
Yes, sir. They're
Okay. Did any of them talk to you about time of death?
no,
Did any of them ask you what your examination revealed?
no,
Did any of them ask you how you came to your decision at the time of death?
no, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything further?
Nothing further.
Thank you, sir. You may step down. Yes, sir.
Shailene Tyndall to the stand, please.
Come forward. Yes, sir.